Hey everybody, it's Mr. Dow. I'm here playing with crypto. Had to bribe him with a little playing to get him to appear in one of these videos. We're just going to go over what's going to happen in week number 5, which is coming up. So let's get ready to go and do that. I'll go small, and let's take a look at the PowerPoint for this week. So this is the week 5 update, and you can see I've got a very concerned looking crypto here. I did that because it's a concerning week. A lot of some people might be a little bit behind. You only have 2 weeks left, and we've got to finish paper 1 because I'm recording this on Friday before the paper's due. Finish paper 1, get paper 2 number done, and start getting ready for week number 6, where we have our final exam. All that's happening. A lot of stuff coming up. So crypto is right to be concerned. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was, I'm reinforcing the feeling of being concerned with the classic 1960s rendition of Rat Fink, which is the main creation of Ed Big Daddy Roth. He used to do a lot of, he's a very well-known graphic illustrator if you're from the 60s. So right now you're kind of doing 2 papers at once. Like I said, it's Friday before the paper's due. Paper number 1 due tomorrow. That means that paper number 1 should be in the process of being written and should be finished soon. And paper number 2 is actually kind of started. That's just normal in the class. But it is kind of, I can see it's anxiety producing. So who is left in this class? Well, I would say that right now I've got 14 people who are on the roll still. Of those 14, I think I've got 9 or 10 that are sort of keeping up, and then some people are kind of falling behind. It's very tough to catch up at this stage. You're falling behind. So again, try to reach out, get hold of people, get hold of me or Aline or somebody to help you. Whatever we can do to help you kind of move forward on paper number 1. Paper number 1, the due date is Saturday, which is tomorrow. Or at least as I'm filming, it's tomorrow. But remember, a good paper turned in a little bit late is better than a bad paper turned in on time. So if you need a couple extra days to pull together that paper, you should definitely do that. However, there is no way to write that paper if you have not done the preliminary work. I still have people trying to turn in body paragraphs without having yet had their outline okayed, which we need to get a 5 out of 5 on the outline assignment, and without having actually done the how to use quotes exercise. You need to want to get a 5 out of 5 out of that. If people don't do those exercises, what they write on those paragraphs kind of doesn't matter. It means we haven't had a chance to get a good point going, and if they don't know how to use quotes. So that's what I'm teaching in the class. So you really have to do those things before you try to get to the body paragraph. You have to get a body paragraph turned in before you turn in the paper. The reason we do it that way is because it's kind of the only way to do it. When people just skip all the steps and turn in a paper, 99.99 times out of 100, it's not even worth reading. It's because there's so many misconceptions about how to do those things, which are very basic college skills. Paper number 2 work right now consists mainly of finding research, which we continue with week number 5. So if you're thinking, oh no, I got to write paper number 2, not this week. Finish paper number 1 first. The final exam will start looming. We're doing the final exam week 6, but I will start introducing it at the end of week 5. Again, are you getting help? There's so much help available to you. If you're not getting the help, at a certain point, it's going to be too late. So I would recommend you do start thinking about that if you haven't already. Here's what's coming in week number 5, everybody. First thing, you have to do the paper number 1 self-reflection. That's assuming you've written a paper number 1 and I've graded the paper number 1. Once you've done that, I ask you some questions that are asking you to go back into the paper and read the comments I put and give me some responses to those comments. So that assignment can be done late because you're kind of waiting on me to finish the paper. And it might take me a few days. Sometimes it does before I actually can grade all those papers. So you're waiting on me. I understand that. If it's late, it's not a problem. Then I give you a page on good sources versus bad sources. It's just a way of helping you save some time if you kind of know in advance what bad sources are. Bad sources are not just sources that don't count. Like they're not just, a bad source could be something like, oh, you're trying to quote somebody who wrote a blog somewhere. It's not a good source in terms of its authority. But I think what's more important for our class is the bad sources where people have found an actual source. It's like a legitimate published piece of writing, but the source is not worth taking a quote of. It doesn't give me enough information, or it doesn't have enough authority, or it's saying something that's so obvious there's no reason to put that in a research paper. Research should be new information you don't have, information the average person doesn't have. And so it's good to see some examples of that. I'll ask you to turn in your paper number 2 outline on week number 5. It's not as difficult to pull that paper together as you might think, just because it is a paper where you don't have a lot of options. You're doing a cause and effect paper based on a social issue in the story that you did paper number one on. Cause and effect mean I'm looking at a couple of things that led to this social issue, whatever it is. And effect, I'm looking at something that came about as a result of the social issue. And you're trying to limit yourself to that. We will look at how to use text quotes from non-literary sources, which is not that different than text quotes from literary sources, but there's enough small differences. I think it's worth discussing them a little bit. Oh, okay. We're going to, okay. You got to turn in a draft body paragraph in paper two, but what I would say, I would remind you, let's get that outline okayed first. Expect to have to probably show me at least 2 outlines before I'm going to say okay. It's not a lot of writing, but it's your ideas, but you need to start getting that down. And what you will find sometimes is you can't really get the ideas down until you do some of the research. It just depends on the story and the social issue. But you are turning in the outline, and later you're turning in the draft body paragraph in paper number 2. You should read about how to write a works cited page in MLA format. That is the list of all the sources that you use in your research paper, okay? I give you some samples and I show you the basics, and then you turn in a draft works cited page of your own paper number 2. It does not have to be a completed draft. I understand you might only have found 2 or 3 sources that you're going to use. Build a works cited page out of those sources and try to show me that you do understand the basic rules. That's what you're doing. Then at the very end of the week, you should tell me if you want to rewrite paper number 1 or not. The news in rewriting paper number 1 is I will throw out the old grade and I'll let you have the new grade. The bad news is there is very little time to do paper number 1, to do a rewrite. So my advice is always, if you're a little pressed for time, which would make sense to me right now, I might skip the rewrite if I have a passing paper, focus on paper number 2, because there's way more points involved in paper number 2 than there are going to be in a rewrite of paper number 1 for most people. But if you are going to rewrite paper number 1, you would let me know at the end of week 5, and you would probably just say, here's my outline. Do I need to change it at all? And we'll just worry about the outline. So at the very end of the week, we have the mechanics grammar review on commas. Very pretty short, just basic comma rules. And then finally, I say, here's the final exam. Here's what it's going to consist of. These are the parts. Here are some examples of it. Here's some sample questions. The main thing on the final exam page is it tells you about how to download the Proctorio software, which is very small. It's really plugins. It's not a lot of stuff. It's very easy to do. It's just that this is what for me to give a somewhat proctored test on Canvas, we both have to have that software, and you have to be using Chrome as your browser. I've had almost no problem using this for the past year and a half since I've started using it. So I don't anticipate a problem with you either, but you should let me know if something comes up. So I'm trying to say, look, at the end of this week, start thinking about that. To take the final in week 6, you're going to need to have the software. All right. All the instructions for that stuff, by the way, as always, there's way more instructions and step-by-step approaches on the actual week 5 pages. So finally, let's talk about the research process in general. That's the reason there even is an English 101 or transfer level English at almost any college, is to teach students how to do a research paper, the right way to do it. So just in general, for any class you take, research is kind of done the same way. The first thing you do is have a topic, and you're trying to refine the topic, so you have a direction for the research. Like I said, in this class, that's really not that big a deal because the topic's already done. I said, look, take a social issue from your paper number 1 story. So if your paper number 1 story was yellow wallpaper, your social issue is definitely gender roles, or historic gender roles and women as second-class citizens in American history, or really just history in general. So you might have to refine it a little bit, but you do have a role, and you're doing causes and effects, so you know what you're supposed to be looking for. What has led up to this social issue? What has resulted from it? Second, you do the research, and I've got the screencast showing you different ways to get that research done. Trying to show you what good sources are. There's really no way around that, though. You have to research the sources, get information. The main thing, again, that I'm trying to get across is that research is information that is detailed, specific, and authoritative. It's not something that the average guy on the street already knows. If you're ever taking a quote from a source, and the quote is saying something like, people who work extra hours often feel stress. That's not research. That's just something that any 10th grader could probably come up with on his own just because it makes sense. Research means you're getting something specific, data-filled, it's expert testimony, so it's detailed, et cetera, et cetera. The next stage after you've done the research is to take the usable material from the research. In other words, you cannot write a research paper from a pile of printout sheets and books straight to your writing. It doesn't work. What you can do is you got your printout sheets of different sources, you got your books, you annotate, which is the way of eliminating stuff that's not useful and briefly looking at the stuff that might be useful. And then the next step is you go back through just the annotated parts and take formal notes. And the formal notes have a specific organization to them. And you're going to have less formal notes than you did annotation. So that by the time you've gone through this step, that means you've found and refined the topic, you've done the research, and now you've gotten the material. What you end up with are formal notes. And what you should commit to, really the best way to write this, is to say, I am writing this paper from the formal notes. I'm not going to go back and look at the annotations again. I'm not going back to those sources again. All I need are these notes. And if you've done it right, often the way to organize the paper, which is step 4, is to organize the notes. Well, these 3 notes would go here in this paragraph. These 7 notes go together. These 2, those are your paragraphs. That's really the way to be doing this. And that's kind of the way I'm trying to push you to do it while having one annotation exercise and one formal notes exercise. So after you've organized the paper into some kind of an outline, you write, you revise, and you kind of maintain format, meaning you have to kind of know, all right, how do I cite different sources, et cetera, et cetera. And we're working with that as well in week number 5. Well, that's kind of the whole thing really for you guys. Let me get back to my regular. Let me get back to where we are. Crypto, we're here. Okay, let's get big again. All right. I didn't know crypto's going to join me right here. So, okay, you guys, that's week number 5 coming up at you. And then week number 6, we're done with the class. Take the final, turn in paper 2, turn in paper 1, rewrite if you're going to be one of the people to do that. But it's a lot, I know, but it's if you're keeping up with me, you'll be able to get through with it. Just make sure that if there's something we can help you with, me, Alina, the Writing Center, whoever, that you actually take advantage of that, all right? Hopefully we hear from you soon. Crypto, you ready to hear from them soon? He is. Okay, all right, I'll talk to you guys later.